Cool. All right. Hey, everyone. Thanks for joining today's Breakout Room webinar. My name is Adam Steinberg. I'm one of the co-founders of Breakout Room. I'm really excited today to be joined by Lukas Biewald, CEO and founder of CrowdFlower. CrowdFlower was founded in 2009. They're a data enrichment platform, taps into on-demand workforce to help companies to collect, cleanse, and label their data. So really interesting use cases for, I think, data science and machine learning. Our last webinar was on building text mining algorithms. This really ties in well to the talk today. So Lucas is going to take us through CrowdFlower, everything they do, talk a little bit about how they got started, some of the entrepreneurial journey, and talk about some of the interesting projects that CrowdFlower is working on. So,
really fun to be joined by Lukas.
Thanks for joining the call today.
Founder of CrowdFlower. CrowdFlower was founded in 2009. They're a data enrichment platform, taps into on-demand workforce to help companies to collect, cleanse, and label their data. So,
can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. We're having a little technical difficulties, I think.
I think I had a second window open that was getting the broadcast. Sorry about that.
Oh, bummer. No worries.
So where should I start?
Yeah, great. So why don't you jump in and just tell us, really, with CrowdFlower, you always start with a problem. So tell us about the problem CrowdFlower is solving and how you identified it.
Sure. So it's a pretty specific problem that I think folks might not know about if they don't work in data science. But if they do, then they're well aware of it. So, I was working on a really specific problem at my last startup where we wanted to launch a search engine that was better than Google. So it was a pretty ambitious company, and we actually had this problem where we were having trouble measuring how well our search engine was doing. And if you think about it, it's kind of a tricky problem because you type in New York Times. Well, you know that NewYorkTimes.com is a good result, but how do you really know that? Is a page that just says New York Times 1,000 times is probably a terrible result, right? There probably is some page like that out there somewhere in the depths of the web. And so, what I discovered was that people were really good at this kind of analysis. And I started posting tasks online to collect data. And I found that this was a really magical solution for me because I was working as a data scientist and I was used to using outsourcing services, which are much more set up for kind of big companies, kind of like finance guys who want to set up a process to transcribe the checks that you put in your ATM. And so, they love to do big projects, but it takes them months to start going, and there's a lot of back and forth, these big, PRDs and RFPs, and, that's not how data science works, right? I mean, data science, you ask a question, you want to get an answer, the next day, right? And so, being able to post tasks online myself, changed the turnaround time on experiments from, months to hours, so it was incredibly useful for me. And then I launched CrowdFlower with that same vision to kind of make data available to any data scientist that wanted that. And so what we do is you can set up a task and put in your input data, and then our global crowdsourced workforce will log in and enrich or clean it. Some quick examples I think really help ground this in reality. So for example, Home Depot will use this to categorize their inventory. So, if they want to say, how many Christmas-related items did I sell? Well, items aren't tagged with Christmas-related. They might say Christmas in it, but often they don't. Holiday lights are probably Christmas-related. Some things that say Christmas probably aren't. And so they actually have people go through and tag things like that, and they can, get new insights into their data. A lot of folks like Autodesk use this with their sales database. So, we should all be so lucky as Autodesk to have over 1 million customers in our CRM, right? But, that's actually really complicated if you want to figure out things like, how many small businesses do we sell to when, a lot of these businesses are overseas, they're in every country, right? So it's how many of these Japanese businesses are small businesses? Well, it's tough to figure out, right? So, so we have people go through in each language and figure out things like, what size is business, what category is it, what do they have a Twitter account, right? That might be really useful to your marketing department, deciding if you want to go market on Twitter or Pinterest or these new social media accounts. We also do a lot of work with PR firms to figure out social media. One of the really funny examples was we were working with the launch of that movie Battleship. It came out a couple years ago, and these data scientists are using us to figure out the sentiment around it. Like, are people saying good things or bad things? And one of the funny things that happened was, well, first of all, most of the things that Sarah said about Battleship are not about the movie; it's the game, right? So you filter those out, and and then it turns out that people that say positive stuff, almost exclusively the tweets look like this: "I'm so excited to see Battleship, the movie," right? And then the same guy will tweet like a minute, 2 hours later, "Man, Battleship sucked." The idea that that's sort of positive, like that's like half positive, negative sentiment is like, probably not the analysis that you want. So, they added in a category: does this person appear to have like watched the movie that they're commenting about, right? So, it's those kinds of insights that are really unique to each data team that we work with. And we want to do is just get people high quality data, so data scientists can do the fun part of their job.
Right. Yeah, that's great. So, gosh, back in 2007, I was working at a social media monitoring company, and we started dipping our toes into sentiment analysis, and we were trying to train an algorithm to do this stuff, and it was really challenging. So I imagine I believe you were at PowerSet before, is that right?
That's right. Yeah.
Some of these things. So talk to us about the ability of a human to do the classification versus an algorithm.
Yeah, I mean, it's something I'm really passionate about. Some things algorithms really are better than humans at, and that's growing all the time. But one of the dirty secrets, and I was just talking to the Google head of research yesterday about this, and one of the dirty secrets about really good algorithms is they're good often because they're trained on tons of data, right? So what algorithms are really good at is kind of finding patterns in massive amounts of data, like more data than any human can look at. So so a lot of the great algorithms are great because they're collected on so much data, right? And the data tends to be really specific, right? So if you just take a general sentiment algorithm and you train it on news articles, and now you apply it to Twitter, it's not going to work well, right? And people discovered that back when Twitter was getting started, right? Because people just tweet differently than they write news articles, right? But then actually, it's even better if you can have your algorithm trained on the individual kind of category that you're looking at. So, for example, if you're talking about a game and you want to know if the game is positive or negative sentiment, the language that people use around that is going to be a lot different than fashion. And so, humans are great at kind of generalizing and kind of figuring this out with smaller amounts of data. What algorithms are really good at is taking tons of data and turning that into great results. And so, so I think the dirty secret about artificial intelligence and machine learning is that you need a lot of training data, which is the problem that we're trying to solve.
Yeah, very cool. Excellent. So let's take a moment, actually, and I'm going to dig into kind of the entrepreneurial journey for a minute. So it seems like a really fascinating problem, very applicable today, but why decide to start a company around it?
Yeah, so one second. All that prep, I think I'm running out of power. Let me just plug in my laptop. So
no worries.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Yes, I think back in 2009 it was a little bit of a different time. It wasn't. I think now entrepreneurs are really celebrated, and it's great. I think it's fantastic for our economy and fantastic for the entrepreneurs. I think back then Y Combinator just getting started, and there's less of kind of a founder CEO thing. I just felt like this tool was so useful for me that I wanted to make it a reality. Actually, at first I went around to a bunch of businesses and I was telling them, hey, you guys should really use this approach that I have. I wasn't even trying to sell them anything. I was just like, guys, this is awesome. I really recommend that you post tasks online. And people are like, I don't know if the quality is going to be good if I'm posting jobs to strangers on the internet. And so then I started kind of hacking together a solution. And then I kind of needed a way to support myself, me and my co-founder, and kind of make a business around it. And that was kind of our journey. I mean, I think starting a company was kind of just the beginning. I think we were pretty naive about how difficult it is to do sales and marketing. We were both engineers and kind of very engineering centric. Starting a very B2B company. And actually, back then was different too. I mean, this was before Box.
Right.
And kind of, people really felt like, even SaaS, as it was kind of like just sort of beginning that people would sort of, enter the markets at lower price points. I mean, people back then were still doing like, kind of big enterprise installs, which really didn't make sense for our software because
Salesforce really the flagship SaaS.
Yeah, Salesforce, yeah. So Salesforce really pioneered that, but I think it took us a while to kind of figure out the right, go-to-market model for the product that we have.
Yeah, so that's really fascinating. As an engineer, I imagine you probably tried to engineer the solution for this, and so so we have a go-to-market challenge. How do we find the right fit? So, what were the things you did to identify the right go-to-market strategy?
We tried a lot of stuff that didn't work. I don't know. Maybe we could have reasoned it out from the beginning, but I think our main approach was failure.
Right.
I think we were pretty, we were pretty unsophisticated, right? So at first we said, well, like let's do a transaction-based model. Mm-hmm. Let's just launch this and charge a markup. And we kind of realized, wow, this is like really useful for our customers, but we would need so many transactions that like there's just no way we can like kind of pay ourselves a salary in time. It's just going to take years and years to kind of build up enough transactions in our system. And that's not even how customers really use us. I mean, customers are getting a lot more value out of our product than we were able to capture, and so it was kind of an unsustainable business model. Then we switched to trying really high-touch enterprise sales, which was great at first because you make a lot of money doing that. It's pretty tough to scale a business that way, though. And people say like it's tough to scale a business about a lot of things. I mean, I think specifically what's hard with kind of big-ticket enterprise sales is that they want a lot of attention, but deals fall through all the time, right? So you're trying to ramp up people for an unknown amount of demand, and that can be really painful, right? Because like turning off servers is effortless these days with EC2, right? Turning off human beings is like laying them off, right? Which is horrible. Yeah. And so it's very hard to kind of gauge the the resources that you need, specifically the employees that you need to service really large customers. And so the other issue actually is that there's kind of an inherent inefficiency when you're doing things on behalf of a bigger company, which is that they know their business so much better than you know their business, right? So either you're teaching them how to use your tool, or they're teaching you about what they want. Right, and so, I think that with our tool, it's easier for us to teach our customers how to use our tool than it is for them to teach us what they want. And it wasn't obvious at first, right? So, for example, we do a lot of cleanup of CRMs, right? So, I was talking about.
Oh, that's a great use case.
It's a great use case, yeah. Everybody's CRM is a mess. Trust me. If you're watching this CRM, if you have more than one customer, I guarantee you're. And so. One of the issues, though, is that clean CRM means really different things to different people, right? So even like what's a record in your CRM is actually pretty complicated, right? So IAC is like a conglomerate that owns Ask and Match.com and Tinder, right? So should IAC be its own record or should Match.com be its own record, right? It's actually a little bit depends on kind of what you're doing. Maybe in that case you might say, oh, obviously it should be Match, but then you say, okay, well in some ways Google is a conglomerate that owns YouTube, right? Should YouTube be its own record or should that be Google? Kind of depends on what you're doing, right? And then, should McDonald's be its own record, or do you want each franchise to be its own record? And then, what's the address of that franchise, right? I mean, there's probably like a, kind of regional office. There's like the drive-through window. It's probably actually a different address at the front door. So it's like one of these things where, you might say, hey, I just want the addresses and I just want all these businesses deduplicated, but no matter how experienced you are, you actually have to ask a ton of questions to find out what somebody actually wants. And somebody's paying for that time, right? If you're trying to make a profitable business there, in some sense that's a waste of time, right? So, because you don't really add value to your company by knowing that. You just have to do it to deliver the value to the customer. So, we made a pretty big switch to say, hey, we're not going to offer professional services. We're not going to offer big enterprise installations. We're just going to, give you the tool and we'll teach you how to use it, but we're not going to run your jobs for you.
Right. So how long did it take you to figure all that out?
Years, many years.
Yeah, that's the tough part. I mean, entrepreneurs, are very optimistic. We're all optimistic, hence we wouldn't be entrepreneurs. But I think we don't realize how long this stuff takes. So what kept you in the game? What kept you focused and kept you from pivoting or switching to another idea you probably had?
I don't know. I mean, maybe I'm crazy. I don't know. I think I think we always had signs of life, and that it always felt like there was a good market there. Like I guess like here's like my feeling about companies. When people come to me with the company, or like when I evaluate different new offerings that we could make. I mean, I look at it like does somebody want this, right? Because if people want it, I think everything else is kind of figure outable. Mm-hmm. So. I think go-to-market strategy like really matters, right? And like the difference between getting it right and really right is like often millions or billions of dollars. But I think that you will, that's like almost like like a optimization problem. Whereas making something that people want is like a really fundamental problem. So kind of as long as customers were like telling me, hey, this is useful. This is really useful to us. That kind of kept me going. And like, we've had customers who were with us from the beginning who've kind of seen all the changes, and they really love us. I mean, like they've become like, good friends. I've watched them get promoted for, believing in us, and it's hard to let them down. I mean, after all these years, it's like, man, really want to make a good service for them and see them succeed.
Yeah. Wow, that's exciting. That's great. So, excellent. So you got through the hard part of the beginning entrepreneurial journey, but tell us about the company today and the vitals and where y'all are at.
Sure. Yeah. So we're in San Francisco. We're about a little over 60 folks here in the office, and millions of contributors all around the world that log into our platform and earn money. We work with we work with a mix. We work with any company that has a data science team. So it's kind of funny what that is, right? So we work with like a lot of the biggest companies in the world. Pretty significant fraction of the Fortune 500. We work with finance companies. We work with a lot of the big box retailers, a lot of the tech companies, and then we also work with a lot of startups because sometimes for startups, data is so important that they'll get a data science team. They'll make that as like their 50th hire, and then it totally makes sense for us to work with them. So we worked with, like Loveocracy was like a tiny company that worked with us. Issue, I think it's about 100 people and works with us. So we don't really make a distinction between big and small. It's just we work with data teams.
Right. Great. So I saw that you all recently launched the Open Data Project, and I checked out your site and saw there was some really cool data. I liked the Deflategate data and the analysis on that. So yeah, just tell us a little bit about that project and where you see that going.
Yeah, totally. Are you from New England or?
No, but you couldn't turn on ESPN for about 6 weeks without hearing about that thing, right?
Yeah, I remember that. One of the things that I'm pretty passionate about is leveling the playing field for everyone. So, our software is fairly expensive because we sell to data teams. So, in order to make a good business off of that, we need to have a price point that's sustainable for us, where we can offer good service. It's not like it's not like selling like email services to like everyone in the world, right? It's a fairly specific piece of software that we really want to make good. And so one of the things that we were doing that always kind of bummed me out is we were kind of pricing ourselves out of the ability for researchers to pay. And researchers actually have a lot of data problems. Like every university has data problems. Little startups have data problems, and we wanted to figure out a way to help those people. And so what we did was we said, hey, we'll offer our platform for you for free to use if you make the data publicly available for everyone else. And that's actually been super successful for us. So we've kind of put the highlights on our Data for Everyone website, but we also have an API where you can download over 1 billion hand-labeled records. And this, I think, really levels the playing field, right? Because when I was at PowerSet, there wasn't a good data set of what websites were good for what search queries, right? And we actually collected that by hand, and I think like hundreds of search startups have collected that by hand, right? But what about the unfunded startups, right? I mean, how do they collect those records? When I remember when $1,000 felt like so much money to us, right? I mean, that was like all the money we had, right? So now there's a whole bunch of search relevance data sets that are available for free for anyone to use. So so hopefully that next unfunded startup can find a good data set where they can train their new search algorithm, right? Or if you want to build a sentiment analysis company, man, we have tons of sentiment data, right? So and even like I think a lot of sentiment startups, they start off by like training on news corpus, and then they switch, they try to apply it to Twitter and it doesn't really work, right? I mean, now it's like if you wanted to make a sentiment analysis system just for the blowhards like screaming about sports issues, well, there's a data set that's going to be perfect for you, right? So
yeah, I love that. Actually, it's funny. It brings back memories of university. So I studied economics, and one of my senior projects was analyzing the efficiency of the Major League Baseball draft. And the hard part was collecting all the data. That took weeks. The easy part was running the regressions. That took days. So having something like the Open Data Project would have been incredibly helpful back then.
Yeah, totally. And I think like it's probably funny, right? Because I bet more than one person has kind of done that data collection project. But it's like once you do it, like kind of a pain to make it public. You don't really want to, right? So I think by like forcing people, it's like, look, you can use our system, but we're gonna publish everything, right? I think it makes this big repository where there's an opportunity for everyone to come in and find it. We've actually found, we found that the weirdest data sets actually have, a second life in other applications, right? So, someone was collecting like, just like naming colors, almost like, for like a fun application, for some visualization stuff, and then. Another person came in and made an app for colorblind people. Actually, a student made an app for colorblind people, and that was like such a cool reuse. And I have a feeling that student probably wouldn't have done that project if they haven't seen that good data set on mapping kind of RGB values to English color names.
Yeah, that's a great example. That's incredible. Great. So, Lukas, thanks so much for your time today. I guess to close it out, last question, what do you see just next for CrowdFlower overall, and what's the future hold?
Sure. So I mean, we're kind of at that stage where we're really trying to scale the business. From a UI perspective, we're really just trying to like polish things. Kind of like the little more of like lead bullets and silver bullets, just trying to clean things up, make it easier to use. From a business perspective, we're starting to really try to expand our marketing reach, make sure that data scientists everywhere know about us and know the power of the tool. We've kind of grown by word of mouth for quite some time, and now we have the cash to kind of really expand that.
Great, excellent. Well, everyone, CrowdFlower is crowdflower.com, I believe, right, Lukas?
Yep, that's right. Crowdflower.com.
Find the Open Data Project there as well. Check it out. Tons of great data. Great way to spend a weekend. And Lukas, thanks so much for your time. Great conversation. I really appreciate it.
Great. Thanks for having me.
All right. Thanks, everyone. Take care.